Before I get into the day, my neighborhood nearly took my driveway. You need to understand something about me. I'm not paranoid. I'm not obsessive. I'm prepared. 32 years as a construction project manager will do that to a person. You learn quickly that assumptions burn money. Shortcuts lead to lawsuits, inspections, and endless paperwork. And paperwork? Paperwork keeps you alive, or at least keeps you sane. So when my wife teases me about my FFO folder, yeah, the fine around find out folder, she's not exaggerating. Every deed, every survey, every title record, every receipt. Scanned, printed, labeled, backed up twice. One copy in the cloud, one on a hard drive. Redundancy isn't paranoia. It's attractive when things go wrong. And believe me, things went very wrong. 3 years ago, I bought my dream home. 5 acres. End of a cul-de-sac. Trees everywhere. No traffic. No noise. No drama. Or so I believed. To reach my house, you drive down a narrow paved lane, maybe 200 feet long. It looks public. It feels public. Even the mailman uses it to turn around. But it's not. Legally, it belongs to me. Every inch of it. The deed spells out clearly, meets and bounds, survey pins, coordinates. No easements. No shared access. No exceptions. Private property. Period. When I first moved in, my neighbor at the time, an elderly woman named Margaret, used the first short stretch of lane to access her garage. The previous owner had allowed it. She was kind, quiet, baked cookies, waved every morning. So I didn't make an issue of it. No harm done. Then Margaret moved away, and the house was bought by Vanessa. Not her real name, but close enough. If you've ever lived near an HOA, you already know her type. Moved in Monday. Joined the HOA board by Wednesday. President by Friday. A full-speed power grab. She wasn't even finished unpacking when she started roaming the neighborhood with a clipboard like she was auditing NASA. Massive red flag. Did I ignore it? Of course I did. The first strange moment happened on a Tuesday morning. I'm standing on my porch, coffee in hand, barely awake, watching the mail truck do its usual 3-point turn on my lane. Normal routine. Then I notice Vanessa standing at the edge of her driveway, arms crossed, staring straight at my lane. Not curious, not casual, more like it had personally offended her bloodline. I remember thinking, well, that's intense. I shrugged it off. That was my first mistake. A week later, I open my mailbox and find a bill. Special assessment, road resurfacing. $2,500. $2,500. I actually laughed out loud. There was absolutely no chance I was paying to resurface a road I owned. I assumed it had to be a clerical error. Tossed it in the junk drawer. Forgot about it. Second mistake. The next Tuesday, I'm working from home, stuck on a Zoom call, business shirt on top, pajama bottoms below, when I hear Ray's voices outside. I glance out my office window and almost spit out my coffee. Vanessa is standing in my driveway. Next to her is Brad, the HOA president, the kind of guy who looks like he sells timeshares and confidence seminars. And with them is a contractor. Hard hat, safety vest, clipboard. They're pointing, nodding, measuring. On my property, without permission. I mute my mic and step outside. Hey, I say, can I help you? Brad spins around wearing a shiny, plastic smile. Perfect timing. We were just deciding where the paving crew should start tomorrow. Start what? I ask. Tomorrow? Right here, he says, pointing at the shared access point. Shared access point. I felt it instantly. That internal alarm that tells you someone is trying to rewrite reality while standing in front of you. I'm sorry, I said carefully. Shared access? This is my driveway. Vanessa laughed, not a friendly laugh. The kind that says you're cute and clueless. Oh, honey, she said, you might want to read your HOA bylaws before embarrassing yourself. Anything connected to cul-de-sac is community property. The contractor suddenly became very interested in his clipboard. I stayed calm. I have the deed, the survey, title insurance. This is private property. Brad waved his hand. We've managed this neighborhood for 15 years. We know what belongs to the community. Then he dropped the real threat. Don't worry about the assessment. We'll just add it to your dues. So they weren't confused. They were confident. Confidently wrong and dangerous. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said. I'll gladly provide documentation. Vanessa stepped closer. You know, she said, the previous owner never caused problems. Maybe try being a better neighbor. Translation. Fall in line. The contractor cleared his throat. If there's a property dispute, we probably shouldn't. No dispute, Brad snapped. Work starts tomorrow. And they walked away. That night, I opened the folder. Every document, every map, every detail. Airtight. No easement. No right-of-way. No shared maintenance agreement. The lane was mine. The next morning, I hear engines. 3 pickup trucks. Workers unloading equipment. About to pave my driveway. I walk out in a bathrobe and slippers like some suburban general preparing for battle. Excuse me, I call out. What's going on? The contractor jogs over. HOA said everything was cleared. It's not, I said. You don't have permission. He calls Brad and hands me the phone. Brad's voice explodes through the speaker. This is harassment. We'll sue you if you interfere. I smiled. You touch my property. I said, I'll sue first. Silence. 10 minutes later, they packed up. Small win. But Vanessa was nowhere near finished. Over the next week, neighbors started using my lane, turning around, parking. One guy even backed his boat trailer halfway down it. When I asked him to move, he shrugged. HOA said it's community property. By Friday, my private driveway looked like a Walmart parking lot. So I escalated. Certified letters. Cease and desist notices. Copies of my deed mailed to every board member. Their response? A violation notice accusing me of blocking community access and threatening a lien. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the letter. My wife sat across from me. She read it, looked up, and said, All right, gloves off. That's when it finally clicked for me. This was never about asphalt. It was about power, control, about deciding who really owned what. All right, pause for a second before I explain how this spiraled into a full-blown suburban courtroom saga involving surveyors, sheriff's deputies, and grown adults having emotional breakdowns over a strip of pavement. Let me explain what was actually happening here. Because this wasn't just a driveway dispute. This was psychology, and this was power. By the book, an HOA is supposed to stay inside very tight legal lanes. They can manage common areas. They can enforce bylaws. They can collect dues for shared property. What they absolutely cannot do is wake up one day and decide that something feels communal and claim it. Legally, property rights don't come from vibes. They don't come from tradition. They don't come from, we've always done it this way. They come from recorded documents, deeds, plat maps, recorded easements. If it's not on paper at the county, it doesn't exist. End of discussion. So when Brad said, we've managed this neighborhood for 15 years, what he really meant was, no one ever pushed back. That was the whole foundation. No proof, no verification, just authority built on momentum, power by inertia. Psychologically, this is a textbook maneuver, a slow trap. First, they send a bill. Then they show up with contractors. Then they normalize the behavior. By the time you're trying to figure out what's happening, neighbors are already using your land. Workers are already scheduled. And suddenly you're the problem for resisting. The story flips. You're no longer a homeowner protecting your rights. You're the difficult neighbor making things complicated. Most people fold right there. Conflict feels awful. Lawsuits sound terrifying. HOA letters look official and final. They rely on that fear. They were betting on me backing down. And that lien threat? That wasn't casual language. HOAs know that the word lien terrifies homeowners. It hints at foreclosure, wrecked credit, legal nightmares. They put on the table like a loaded weapon, even when they're not entirely sure they're allowed to pull the trigger. So at that point, I knew 3 things. 1, I was legally right. 2, they were emotionally committed to being right. 3, they were escalating, which meant I had to outthink them, outplan them, and outlast them. Because bullies hate paperwork. That's where the story truly turns. When that violation notice hit my mailbox, something shifted. Until then, I'd been playing defense, explaining, responding, correcting, trying to stay reasonable. That letter made one thing clear. Reason had been kicked out of conversation. So I stopped reacting and started planning. First move, I hired the best surveyor in the county. Not the cheapest, not the fastest. The guy other surveyors call when situations get ugly. His name was Richard, retired military. Crew cut, zero nonsense. He carried himself like every measurement he ever took was a matter of national security. I told him, I need a full boundary survey. No shortcuts. He laughed. How soon? Yesterday. He liked that. While I waited for his schedule, I went digging. County recorder's office. Dusty files. Microfilm. Digital archives. I pulled everything tied to my property, the cul-de-sac and the HOA. Deeds. Subdivision plats. Easement filings. And that's when I found it. The HOA had utility easements. Drainage rights. Maintenance access for sewer lines. But nothing, absolutely nothing, giving them authority over private roads. Zero control over my lane. But that wasn't the best part. Buried in an old boundary map was something beautiful. Their community park fence? It was 4 feet onto my land. 4 feet the entire length. They'd been landscaping, gardening, and maintaining my property for years without realizing it. Oh, okay, game on. Richard showed up the next Tuesday with equipment that looked like it communicated directly with satellites. He spent 6 hours measuring, marking, cross-checking, and then checking again. Barely said a word, which in his line of work is a very good sign. A few days later, he asked me to come to his office. He spread the survey across his desk. Your lane is private, he said. No question. Then he tapped the park boundary. And this? They're trespassing. I leaned back. How sure are you? He looked me straight in the eye. I'd bet my license. Perfect. Now I had proof. But proof alone doesn't win wars. Timing does. So I called Brad and put on my best defeated tone. Hey man, I've been thinking. Maybe we can work something out. He perked up immediately. Glad to hear it. Paving starts Monday morning. Okay, I said quietly. I'll stay out of the way. He thought he'd won. Monday arrived bright and sunny. Perfect construction weather. At 7:30 a.m., I made coffee and took a seat by the window like it was a pay-per-view event. At exactly 8 o'clock, 3 vehicles pulled in. The paving crew, Richard's survey truck, and a sheriff's deputy. Civil standby, my request, my insurance policy. I walked outside with a folding chair, sat at the edge of my property, sat down and sipped my coffee. Richard began hammering permanent steel stakes into the ground. Pink flags snapping in the breeze. First stake, straight through the usual boat trailer parking spot. Second stake, blocking access on the cul-de-sac entirely. Vanessa came storming out of her house like she'd been summoned by dark magic. You can't do this. I stood up slowly and pulled out my folder. Actually, I can. I handed her the survey. Then I walked over to the paving foreman and handed him a formal trespass notice. If any of your equipment crosses those flags, you're operating illegally. He glanced at the deputy, then at the paperwork, then at his phone. 5 minutes later, he was making calls. 10 minutes later, trucks were loading up. Brad completely lost it. You're holding the neighborhood hostage. I started recording. What rights are you referring to? He stammered. We have maintenance agreements. Did you verify them with the county? Silence. That silence said everything. Then I handed him the second document. The demand letter. Your fence is on my land. You have 30 days to remove it. Vanessa read it and went pale. They huddled, whispered, argued. Finally, Brad muttered, We'll fight this. I smiled. I'm filing the survey today and notifying the tax assessor. That ended it. Property tax audits terrify HOAs. 3 days later, their lawyer called. We'd like to discuss a resolution. There's no dispute, I said. 2 weeks later, it was signed. They acknowledged my ownership, removed the fence, renounced authority, recorded it with the county, permanently. The paving project cost them $5,000 in wasted fees. Neighbors found out they'd been lied to. The board got voted out. I installed a gate and cameras. Vanessa now does a 5-point turn every morning. Poetry, but the real victory was a revenge. It was reclaiming reality. Paperwork beat ego every single time. A few months later, I was sitting on my porch again. Same chair, same view. This time the mug held beer instead of coffee. The sun dipped behind the trees at the end of my lane. Quiet, no cars turning around, no strangers parking, no clipboards, no fake smiles, just peace. And that's when it really hit me. This never started because of asphalt. It started because someone decided my boundaries were optional. Most conflicts with HOAs, neighbors, bosses, even family, don't begin with evil plans. They start with small assumptions. She won't mind. He won't fight it. They've always allowed it. It's basically ours anyway. When no one pushes back, those assumptions harden into truth. Vanessa didn't wake up thinking, let's illegally take a driveway. She woke up thinking, this neighborhood needs order, and I'm the one to provide it. Brad didn't think he was corrupt. He thought he was efficient. That's how entitlement works. It dresses itself up as responsibility. Legally speaking, what saved me wasn't money. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't even intelligence. It was documentation. I didn't win by being louder. I won by being prepared. Your deed matters. Your survey matters. Your title insurance matters. Your county records matter more than any HOA newsletter board vote, or we've always done it this way. If it's not recorded, it's not real. Psychologically, this taught me something uncomfortable. Most people aren't bullied by force. They're bullied by paperwork and confidence. Official-looking letters, threatening language, big words like violation and lien. It's designed to make you feel small before you even check the facts. But here's the truth. Bullies hate resistance backed by facts. They thrive on uncertainty. They collapse under clarity. Once surveys, deputies, and county filings showed up, the illusion shattered. No yelling, no insults, just receipts. Do I think every HOA is evil? No. Some are fine. Some are run by people who genuinely care. But any system that gives small amounts of power to untrained volunteers will eventually attract the wrong personalities. People who crave control. People who confuse authority with superiority. People who think rules bend for them. Standing up for yourself is exhausting. It costs time, money, sleep, and sanity. There were nights I wondered if it was worth it, if I should just pay and move on. That's what they count on. Burnout. But every time I drive down my lane now, every time that gate closes behind me, I know it was worth it. Peace, you defend yourself, it's different. So if you're dealing with this right now, an HOA, a landlord, a neighbor crossing lines, slow down, get organized, pull records, ask questions. Don't assume you're wrong just because someone sounds confident. Authority comes from law, not volume. And if someone gets angry that you're checking, that's usually your sign to keep digging. Have you ever had a fight in HOA, a landlord, or a neighbor? Did you win? Did you fold? What would you do differently? Drop it in the comments. I read them all, because these stories aren't just entertainment. They're survival guides. And sometimes all it takes to protect your money, your sanity, and your life is one well-organized folder and the courage to open it.